Yes, your supplementary, please.
Madam, due to the rising costs of inputs, the farmer for his sheer survival has to ensure the highest yield possible from his field. For this reason, pesticides are being widely used by farmers all over to kill insects and pests. But madam, it is a fact
Time in 0 hour.
that
I give you time in 0 hour. जी.
so madam, these pesticides which are being used by the farmers to ensure high yield of their crops, there is no doubt that research has proved that these are as harmful for human beings as it is for the ecosystem. So, madam, the growing use of pesticide today in our country has resulted that where these pesticides are used, it is proven that over 90% of the pesticide gets mixed in the soil and the water and contaminating the entire water bodies as well as the soil. And this is also one of the reasons for the rising cases of cancer that is spreading in our country. Madam, in my state, in the Malwa belt of Punjab, it is found that the pesticide in the blood samples of the farmers is so much higher than anywhere else in the world. In fact, even the milk of lactating mothers has residues of pesticide. There are uranium contents in the hair of children as well. So all this indiscriminate use of pesticide and no control over it is leading to hazardous problems in the health of humans. It is that also the flora and the fauna and the entire ecosystem is getting spoiled. Madam, I would like to know through the government that this rising hazardous sense of all these diseases which are being caused and indiscriminate use which is leading to the flora, fauna and ecosystem being harmed, there is obviously no body which is looking into the indiscriminate use and the harmful side effects, and if there is a body, it is obviously not being implemented the way it needs to be implemented. I would like to know from the government
All right.
that
Just
is
1 minute. 1 minute. ठीक.
So, madam,
Don't be so long.
no, madam,
Yeah.
I just want to know from the government that do they plan to have some dedicated body which looks into the legislation and strict implementation of laws and which creates some awareness at the ground level for the farmers to realize the side effects, and will they ensure the implementation of these laws and of this body so that for the future these things can be arrested and we do not have to face the harmful effects.
Madam, honourable members raised a very important question, and honourable members are absolutely right that the indiscriminate use of pesticides and weedicides does lead to tremendous health and environment hazards all over the country. Honourable member referred to the Malwa region of Punjab. We actually have the details for the Malwa region itself, and I'd like to inform the honourable member, madam, that the Punjab Agriculture University had collected samples of food in the Malwa region, and out of a total of 162 vegetable samples, residues over the permissible limit were detected in 5. Groundwater samples, wheat flour samples. Although the extent is not as much as the honourable member says, there was considerable pesticide leading to health hazards in this area. Madam, this is the issue of weedicides and pesticides is something which is a cross-cutting issue. It's not just the Ministry of Environment which is responsible for this. It is something that is concerned with the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Environment. However, government does not leave it to chance. While the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, they strictly monitor those pesticides which are allowed to be registered and used in the country. It is actually the Ministry of Health that monitors the health, whereas the Ministry of Environment looks at the water samples, looks at the groundwater, and looks at how this contamination happens. For example, monitoring of pesticides in surface water is conducted in 10 states, groundwater is monitored in 7 states, and the water quality monitoring is carried out in 2,500 stations in 28 states all over the country. Efforts being taken by government to prevent this is the use of biopesticides and a new concept called integrated pest management, which encourages the use of biopesticides and firmly rejects and phases down the use of harmful pesticides as referred to by the Honourable Member.
Second supplementary, please.
Ma'am, the minister says that the situation is not as alarming as I have made it sound. But ma'am, I would like to say that a known fact that pesticide produces cancer. When the national average is 100 cancer cases per lakh population, in my constituency alone it is 134, besides the other suspected ones, which is 4 times the amount. And ma'am, like I said, that if you look at the blood samples of farmers or the milk of lactating mothers, the quantity of pesticide found in that is very high, and even the hair samples of children, high quantities of uranium has been found in the hair samples. All this goes to prove that the situation is highly alarming. So ma'am, I did not get an answer in the first thing, that is there going to be some regulatory body which is going to look into the creating awareness, creating legislation, including in looking into the implementation of those legislations so that this toxicity can be controlled. Ma'am, my second question what I want to ask, that it's a fact that children are more prone to the toxicity of all these things because it gets absorbed through their skin at a much higher level, which leads to all kind of coma, seizures and many other kind of problems. And it's a fact that if we look at the affluent treatment going into all our water bodies of Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, Kaveri, all the water bodies have become so toxic that this is a very serious issue which is leading to health hazards. Even in my constituency, ma'am, almost 14,000 acres of land due to water logging, brackish and saline water, the land has been rendered uncultivable and the water is severely contaminated. And does the government plan to give some grants through their ministry or through their government to clear up this 14,000 acres where water logging is a serious issue affecting the health, the flora, the fauna and the ecosystem, to create mitigation for the future? Is there any grant that they will give?
The member wanted to know if there was any regulatory body. There are 3. One regulatory body is under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, and that is called the Central Insecticides Board. And the approval for the use of pesticides and new formulations to tackle the pest problem in various crops is given by the Registration Committee, which is also under the Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it monitors the pesticides. And environmental issues are with the Ministry of Environment. The legislation that is governs in the Ministry of Environment the use of pesticides is the Environment Protection Act, under which any instructions can be issued so that the water bodies and any threat either to flora or fauna can be successfully managed. Honourable Member must be aware that there is a Stockholm Convention, and India is a signatory to the Stockholm Convention. Under the Stockholm Convention, the use of 12 highly hazardous chemicals have already been banned. And out of those 12, except for DDT, which is required in India for certain purposes and for a very limited amount, all those pesticides are already banned within the country. Endosulfan has been banned by the Supreme Court of India. And apart from those, what are known as persistent organic pollutants, which are the ones which create the problems that Honourable Member is talking about, we are taking steps to ensure that those are slowly phased out. So we are taking the situation very seriously. Honourable Member asked about the water logging. We don't have that will not come under the mandate of the Ministry of Environment. However, I'm sure that government will take note of this, and if there's any provision under any other ministry, disaster prevention, any other ministry, certainly they will look at. However, after this is over, if there's any remediation that can be done by the Ministry of Environment and Forests within our mandate, I would like to assure the Honourable Member that we will look into it.